Hello, my beautiful dear souls. I can't believe it. We're here, we're live, we're on YouTube. Let me see if I can get to the chat because what's most important is that I get an opportunity to hear from you. So if you are here, as always, let me know, make your presence known, and welcome to the first episode of Dear Dr. Charryse Live. I'm super pumped to continue this mental health podcast with you, where we talk all about the intersection of integrative wellness, neuroscience, and mindset, so you can learn, so you can grow, and honor the space that you are designed to occupy. I'm going to, of course, first take a little sip. It's funny because typically I have something caffeinated, and I definitely had to remind myself, like, do not use anything caffeinated during this time. So this is my decaf tea made by my lovely daughter, so I'm not parched. And as always, let me take a sip, and then we will begin. I'm excited. I'm going to say that a million times about what I want to focus on for tonight. And I feel like it's a little bit out of the box, but also right in the box of integrative mental health and wellness in a really powerful way. So I want to talk today about the link between dehydration, mental health, and self-sabotage. So I was thinking too, like, what would I title this? And I would say, don't be thirsty. And that can go a lot of ways, but follow me as we kind of take a journey around dehydration, the ramifications behind dehydration, how it impacts your mental health, and then also being able to link that to self-sabotage. First, let me give you some rationale. How in the world, Dr. Charryse, did you come up with this topic? I have so many individuals who talk about struggling to do the things that they want to do the things that they find valuable and important to themselves. And as a result of that, I want to always give you really helpful things to consider, because we're often looking for something new, right? Tell me these 5 steps. What are the different things that I can do to help myself be motivated? And sometimes we're overlooking very basic things like hydration. So as you listen, I want you to stop and consider how your thirst, and I'm going to take that a few different directions, may be playing a significant role in your ability to show up as your best self, because it's all about you feeling like you are waking up and living a life that you don't have to escape. That is my definition of wellness and well-being: creating a life you don't have to escape through self-sabotaging behaviors, through avoidance, and all the things. And for those of you who are listening and think, oh, I have my water down, I do great with water, stay tuned, because there's always a little something for everybody. And I'm going to metaphorically take it in an area that I feel like will resonate with everyone to some degree. So let's first take a look at what research trends are in the area of dehydration. And I found this pretty interesting. So according to research, 75% of Americans are chronically dehydrated. Not going to lie, that number blew me away. And then if we think about it globally, that number may actually be higher for those that live in areas with either food or water insecurity. So that was staggering. We also know that when individuals have chronic dehydration as they mature and age, starting at age 18 and up, then mortality rates can be higher. So remember that things are a process in terms of wanting to live well. It's not something that we can wait to do until we're 50 or 60 years old. We really need to think about it on a consistent basis. So mortality rates are higher in dehydrated patients. So we know that health outcomes, including frailty, that means osteoporosis, our bones being frail, even having a higher risk, a fall risk as we mature. I get it. Most of you who are listening may not be at the age where that's something that you have to consider. But I also feel like we are seeing day in and day out a trend where things that we didn't experience until well into age start happening earlier, and you can't wait until the game to learn the plays. That means waiting until we are at the point where we feel frail can't be the time that we start focusing on, oh, this is what I need in order to support myself. So mortality rates are higher in dehydrated patients. Dehydration impacts long-term health outcomes. We also see something called bradyarrhythmia. So this is a normally slow and irregular heartbeat. Again, for some of you, that may be a sign or symptom that you're not concerned with, but some of you are also caregivers. And these may be things that you want to take into account as you're caring for someone that you love or listening to the symptoms and the different things that they're experiencing. We also see that those individuals or individuals who struggle with dehydration can have what we call transient ischemic attacks, which is brief blood flow to the brain that can cause stroke-like symptoms. Take that in. I want you to really understand the magnitude of not hydrating yourself and being a person who chronically says, yes, I need to get better in that area. It can have such a huge impact. A few other things, if we look at it from a biological element, it can also impact surgery recovery, which of course can happen at any time. And we know that it is definitely a cause of fatigue. So whether you have children, a teen, an athlete, a partner, whoever is in your life, I want you to really focus on the fact that it's important for our entire biological system, especially considering we're about 60% water, to make sure that we are hydrated. Research, of course, also shows that water is important for maintaining your mental health. It's funny, right before, or a little bit before we started, my daughter was like, oh, what's your topic going to be? And I said, oh, dehydration, mental health, and self-sabotage. And she said, what? She was like, that is a leap. It is. And now let me break it down. So how can dehydration affect your mental health? Dehydration can cause a decrease in your serotonin. And the serotonin is the hormone that regulates your mood. Think about it as well. About 90 to 95% of our serotonin is also made in the gut. There's a bidirectional aspect going from the gut to the brain. So if our serotonin is off, our water is low, it's going to impact digestion, which is going to impact our gut health, which is going to impact our quality of thinking. We also see that dehydration can cause prolonged cognitive problems, difficulties with memory. A 2% decrease in brain hydration can result in short-term memory loss. Yikes. And think about the fact that as we mature, and when I say mature, pretty much anything beyond the age of 20, because that's when our brain telomeres start to shorten if we're not doing things to actively keep them elongated and healthy. So a 2% decrease in brain hydration can result in short-term memory loss. So imagine that as you are working through life and trying to stay out of brain fog and stay mentally sharp, that one of the most impactful things that you do is simply to make sure that you get adequate water. And of course, hydration can also come from fruits and vegetables and things that you eat that are whole foods. We also know that if water levels are too low, our brain cells cannot function properly. That leads to cognitive problems, and neuronal activation. That means when you are engaging in a task, your brain, I always have to have it nearby. That means that prefrontal cortex of your brain, where you're doing all of your executive functioning and working hard, will work harder than necessary if you're not adequately hydrated. So you're really working against yourself. And you may end up in a situation where you feel really frustrated trying to figure out why you are unable to stay on top of things the way you normally would. And hydration, of course, it can be other things, but hydration can definitely be a minor cause of that dynamic. Other things to consider. Here are 6 ways that your dehydration can impact your mental health. So I looked overall what happens to your brain when you're severely dehydrated. And now let's get into 6 ways, and then I'll link them together when it comes to self-sabotage. Number one, spoke about this just a little bit, impaired cognitive function. That means dehydration can lead to impaired cognitive function, including problems with memory and attention, concentration, decision making. You know what the first thing was that came to mind to me as well as I read and researched this and put this together? If you or someone that you know is also a neurodivergent, as a neurodivergent myself, I can say we already struggle with attention to task, concentration, and decision making because of the impulses and the way our brain fires off. So it's even more important to make sure for everyone, but specifically for those of you that are neurodivergent, that you are adequately making sure that you're hydrated. Number two, mood changes. Dehydration can affect mood and lead to irritability, anxiety, and increase feelings of stress and depression. So, in severe cases, it's where we see that dehydration can contribute to symptoms of depression. Depression, in of itself, already takes over, already makes us feel really awful, heavy limbs, difficult times, kind of difficult time having a difficult time walking through life and working through things. And there can be loss of appetite or even an increased appetite. And what's interesting, if I think about some of the people that I've supported over time who've struggled with dehydration and how it's impacted their appetite, even though their appetite may go up, their hydration doesn't. So it doesn't always run parallel. And you may have a situation where someone is starting to emotionally eat or binge, but then not noticing how well they're doing with their water, which we know is just a difficult recipe for feeling like your best self. Number three, fatigue and lack of energy. Dehydration can cause fatigue, a lack of energy, and that impacts motivation, productivity, and your overall mental well being. I hear so many individuals beat themselves up trying to figure out why they feel the way they do. What is wrong with me? Why am I not motivated? And part of me even bringing something like dehydration into the conversation is, and if those of you who have worked with me in different settings, I've said it before, we have to make sure that your baseline vital habits, how you eat, how you sleep, and how you hydrate, are in a good place before we even layer in all of the emotional dynamics, the financial dynamics, and the social dynamics. Because those three things, those baseline things, make a significant difference. I can even out myself here. There was a season not too long ago where I had to go on a medication for an autoimmune challenge. Did not realize that it was taking away my thirst, but did notice I had no thirst at all. It was really difficult and I felt horrible. The level of fatigue and the lack of energy I had was bad, and then made me feel like I had no motivation, and trying to get through anything was difficult. I made a point to force myself literally to go, this is the minimum amount of water that you know that you need. So I need you to have it, set those goals. And I was blown away at how my natural energy lifted, which then, of course, lifted my productivity. And the major change that I made was making sure that I was getting back up into that range of water, which was helpful for me. Number four, headaches. Dehydration is a common trigger for headaches. Headaches are debilitating, make it difficult to move around. We don't want to do much. And headaches also are going to impact your mood and your cognitive function, make you want to kind of pull back on everything. Number five, increased stress response. Dehydration and stress are like the chicken and the egg. Stress can cause dehydration, and dehydration can impact your level of stress from a cognitive standpoint, from a neurobiological standpoint. It all goes hand in hand. Dehydration activates the body's stress response. That's going to lead to an increase in cortisol levels. Your cortisol is your stress hormone. And when that cortisol gets kicked into high gear, you're going to directly see an impact on your level of inflammation, which is 60% of the problems that we have when it comes to preventable diseases. Cortisol is also going to impact your appetite. So that's why, if you're working in the world of nutrition or working with someone in that world, we'll often talk about making sure that you're hydrated and how those aspects of stress and hydration can give you just a really tangled web, and you want to make sure that you are keeping yourself stable. I'll also say, if you know for a fact that you're struggling with adrenal fatigue or chronic cortisol levels, then water is going to be an important element of you helping reduce that down. It is not the only element. You want to look at your body as a whole system, but something to keep in mind. Number 6, impaired sleep. Dehydration can disrupt sleep patterns, lead to poor sleep quality. That impacts hormones, that impacts inflammation, that impacts body symbiosis, homeostasis, appetite. And then lack of adequate sleep is absolutely going to further exacerbate our mental health issues, our mood disturbances, our cognitive impairment, and our stress levels. So that's the background. I always want you to understand, again, the neurobiological aspect of why we're talking about what we are. So let's switch gears and get into the dynamic of self-sabotage. I want to give you 2 definitions because I want this, again, to be an opportunity for you to learn and grow. What is self-sabotage? Everybody may look at it different. Here's kind of the most known definition of self-sabotage. Self-sabotage occurs when we destroy ourselves physically, mentally, or emotionally, or deliberately hinder our own success and well being by undermining our personal goals and values. And if we're real and if we're honest, if we're not adequately hydrating ourselves, nourishing ourselves, caring for ourselves, whether we want to admit it or not, that is a deliberate undermining. That is a self sabotage of what we say that we want. I want you to simplify, really, any of your work towards growth and towards personal growth, and realize that our small daily choices add up and either are going to move us toward what we value or away. And I'm going to take a quick sip. So, a behavior is said to be self-sabotaging when it creates a problem in daily life and interferes with our long-standing goal. So back to the question where we started in the beginning. How does your thirst get in the way of you showing up as your best self? And let's take this 2 ways. So we talked about your thirst in terms of physical and the amount of thirst that you need, the amount of hydration that you need, and how important that is to your body's systems. Keep that in mind for those of you who know that's an area that I struggle. I've always struggled with my water. But I also want you to metaphorically think about the fact that sometimes we have an internal thirst. Now we're talking again metaphorically, symbolically. You might be well hydrated in the physical sense. And if you are, bravo. But now I want you to shift and I want you to consider, what's your soul thirsting for? Are you adequately quenching your thirst for life and for purpose with the right things? Because there is no counterfeit for hydration. Going back to the physical for a moment, this is tea, mostly water. It fits under the terms of hydration, but if it had caffeine in it, doesn't fit as well. There's no replacement for clear, fresh, clean water to our brain and to our body. And then when we look back metaphorically and we look back to what our soul longs for, to have purpose, to have belonging, to have connection, there is no counterfeit for having our thirst for life purely and appropriately satisfying so that we're not looking for things outside of ourselves. So if we back this all the way up to where we're started, and I want to connect the dots all together, it may seem as simple as, oh, I want to buy a new water bottle and make sure that I get my water in. But if I don't, it's not a big deal because I just love my sweet tea with caffeine and my coffee and I have all those things. But you are breaking down your body in ways that you do not realize. And it's hard for us to later put together the fact that we don't have the energy that we need to do the things that we want to do. And you may be in a situation where you're getting, let's say, 16 ounces of water a day, but then also going throughout your day and at times or at moments going, why don't I sleep well? Why is my mood so low? Why am I so irritable? Why does everyone bother me and annoy me? Of course, water is not the only reason that that is happening, but it is a basic, vital habit of life that says a lot about what we believe about ourselves. It says a lot about our ability to make sure that we are filling our own cup first and then operating out of the overflow. That's an analogy that I feel like you can take into any area of your life. We know from the world of wellness that one of the best things to do when you wake up in the morning is to have 16 ounces of room temperature water with a little bit of lemon so that you are immediately rehydrating yourself. But I want you to take that even further and think about on a regular basis, how are you quenching your thirst? And are you ignoring this area of your life, this area of your mental health? Is there a connection there? And if you want to know, is there a connection there? All you simply need to do is try it, is to be intentional about tracking. Well, let me actually take a good inventory. How much water am I getting? How much water is my family getting? What am I noticing about our mood? What am I noticing about how we're navigating through life and how we are in engagement and interaction with each other? And make it something that you do, whether it's with your partner, your spouse, a friend, or family, but be intentional because it impacts your life, it impacts your mental health, it impacts your brain, it impacts your motivation. Because when our brain is low, things here go into survival mode. Back in that lizard brain says, just do whatever you want to do, just do whatever is necessary. And it keeps us in a loop of self sabotage. And you can get yourself out of that loop at any given moment. So, how do you take this and then apply it? Go back through and listen. Find the parts that are important for you that you know this resonates with me in some way. Take inventory of yourself and make sure that you have a good understanding of your body's individual needs for water. Typically, when I do a conversation like this, one question that everyone's going to ask is, how much water do I actually need? And the truth is, that's an individualized answer. It depends on your height, your weight, your activity level, where you live, your lymphatic system, roughly, right? As a general principle, we know that you need 4 to 8 glasses, 8-ounce glasses of water a day, but it can be higher or lower depending upon all the factors I just gave, as well as kidney health, liver health, and a number of things. If you are truly concerned and wondering, you can always do things like an in-body scan, typically at a wellness place, and find out what your water percentage is of your body, and they'll let you know if you're within the green range. But either way, you know when you're too low, you know when you need to hydrate. And so you determine for yourself, is it a physical thirst that you need to address more? Or is it a soulful, purposeful, longing thirst that you realized is not being quenched and that you're thirsty in the wrong ways? I hope that you heard something today that you can take and use or that you can share with someone else. If you look at the show notes for this that will post after it's done, you'll find all the information that you need about how you can link with me. We will continue to go live and engage in interaction. And so I'll have an opportunity to hear from you, to see you and answer your questions. But as always, stay connected and share this with someone who may need it. As always, remember that knowledge is not power without application. So it is important for you to make sure that you are applying what you need in every single way. As I said, continue to stay connected